Calling to order the regular meeting of the Wheeling Plan Commission for Wednesday, August 26, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Sure thing. Commissioner Blanova.
I'm here.
Commissioner Sprague.
Here.
Commissioner Kalis is here. Commissioner Yednick.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Creech.
Present.
And Chairman Johnson.
Here. Thank you. Ms. Nyes, any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
All right. Citizens' concerns and comments. I don't believe we have anyone signed up. No. Okay. So moving right along, consent items. Docket number SCBA 20-18 Keats Manufacturing for approval of a canopy sign. Docket number SCBA 20-19. Approval of 2 wall signs for Nails 312 at 405 West Dundee. Docket number SCBA 20-21 Arctic Spoon 371 West Dundee for the installation of 1 wall sign. And SCBA 20-22 Foxboro Apartments at 470 Foxboro Drive for the installation of 2 monument signs.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Sprague and Commissioner Yednick?
Commissioner Sprague.
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova.
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech.
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Do we have a technical issue? Oh, that's why you weren't showing the signs? Should we move along, or you want to show the signs before we?
You can move along.
Okay, items for review. Docket number PC 20-8, Foxboro Apartments, 470 Foxboro Drive, for the construction of a dog park. Ms. Nyes, anything?
I believe the petitioner is here, but I will just give a brief summary. So Foxboro has a couple items on the agenda tonight. First one is the dog park. This is going to be going where an existing volleyball court is on the east side along Wolf Road. There's 2 volleyball courts there right now, and the one that's further south is going to be removed for construction of a dog park. And this type of work requires a minor site plan approval from the Plan Commission. There's a bunch of amenities in the dog park, and we can let the petitioner talk about that. That's really all I have.
All right, thank you. Is petitioner here?
Oh. Yeah,
Come on up. Just state your name and business address for the record, please.
Kent Rickhoff, business address 135 Water Street in Naperville.
Thank you. And just give us a brief synopsis.
Could you speak in the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we acquired the property in January, so we're looking to do a bunch of side improvements, the dog park being one of those. So currently there's, like she's mentioned, there's 2 sand volleyball courts that very seldomly get used. So we'd like to keep one for amenity, repurpose the second one to turn into a dog park, which is a very needed amenity for the residents of the property and it really requested. So with that, what it'll do is it'll be a 4-foot fence with plate chip certified mulch on the ground, and then we do a number of obstacles inside and then benches for the owners to sit on. So it's a really nice, neat looking dog park, and it'll be a nice amenity for the residents.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll go to the commission now. Commissioner Blanova, do you have anything?
Thank you. I just have a quick question about, does this complex have a restriction on the dog size? How big are the dogs going to be there?
Yeah, so each apartment's allowed 1 dog up to 50 pounds, and then we also have a list of restricted breeds. We took over in January, so our new lease has restricted breeds, weight, size, and number of requirements. There are some old leases that have a little bit different restrictions, but going forward, everything will be under that restriction.
Got it. Well, that looks really good. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions. I think it's a great idea.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be a nice addition to the complex there. I just have a couple of questions. As far as like the pet waste, I see you have a station for bags and a can, but will there be how often will that get emptied, or who's in charge of getting rid of that?
Yeah, so there is one station right at the entrance to the park, and then we also have multiple ones throughout the property that are there. And then we have, I think this property has 3 full-time maintenance guys. So their requirement is every morning when they do grounds, they're required to check the bag station. So at minimum 6 days a week, once a day.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had is the mulch that you're going to use for the base. Is that what is commonly used for dog parks? I don't know.
Yeah, so we do a lot of dog parks, so there's really 3 options. There's grass, which over time really gets destroyed and looks really bad and turns into a mud pit. There's the mulch, which is most common just for price. And my landscapers here as well, we normally do 6 inches deep, so that way there's enough, the smell and everything goes through. And then the third option would be synthetic turf, but that takes a dog park from our $30,000 budget to roughly about $60,000. So yes, for us, it is common to use the mulch more for the benefits of the dogs plus a price-conscious addition.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Yednek.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. I had a few questions. I'm a recent dog owner about a couple years ago, so I wish I had room in my condo building to put this up. It's a nice addition. You disappointed me when you said you had breed restrictions and weight restrictions, though, because I have a German Shepherd who's a pussycat, and you probably restrict her. But anyway, I went over and took a look at the property. I thought it was a good location. I was questioning whether you would consider adding any shade trees in the park. I go to a lot of dog parks since I had my dog, and I know that when I saw that you got one tree that's near the volleyball court, but nothing inside. So, I know my dog, she'll always run into the bushes. Like today, I took her to Buffalo Grove Dog Park, and she was under the bushes most of the time in the shade and stuff. So had you considered any additional shading or anything?
We did particularly for this one. So normally we try to do shading where we put the benches at. And, in this one in the afternoon, that one tree will stay. We normally put the bench right in front of there, but we haven't looked at any additional shade. It's something we could look at, but we didn't right now.
All right, that's just more, for the amenity for the residents, just to have some shade in the park. And then what about a water hydration station? Did you look at that at all, or is it hard to pipe all the way out there?
We did. To get to this location, we would have to run down right to the north of that. There is a building. We'd have to run at about 125 feet and go under a couple sidewalks to get hooked up. So we did investigate it.
Okay.
It's something that we can contemplate it, and we thought we could always add later if we get the need for it.
Yeah, I know as a dog owner, I bring water to parks that don't have it, so I'm assuming that most of the owners might do something similar. I noticed you're going to put 2 benches inside. There's the one bench that's existing next to the tree. You're going to leave that one there still?
No, we'll remove that. I think it'll be in the way, so we will do the benches right inside. But that one, I think, is actually, it's in pretty poor shape, so it needs to go. It's a liability, actually.
Okay, I know you're trying to do is cost effective. I was just thinking more than 2 benches might be helpful for the residents. But again, these are just suggestions from being a avid dog park user. I also had some concerns about the mulch too. I never saw that. I did some online looking, and I guess that is a recommended material, but it just seems to me that pickup would be very difficult with the mulch, and you're going to end up losing a lot of mulch in the dog trash. I just don't understand. I'm sure the artificial turf would be very expensive. Grass, yeah, it does kind of get beat up, but it's much easier to clean up after the pups.
Yeah, so I'd say in the past 3 years, we've done, this is probably my 6th dog park, 5 of them being mulch. You do use a little bit, but normally the pet waste stays on top. You do lose a little bit, and then we roughly in our budget, we normally do a top dressing every year just to keep it fresh and clean. So we do always top dress it, but it's usually not too big of an issue.
Well, I was also thinking for sanitary, because the owners might have a hard time picking everything up with the mulch as opposed to grass or the synthetic surface. You don't have that issue with the other
We don't,
parks?
no, honestly, no. It's usually not a big issue.
Okay, the first time I ran into that, but I did do some looking on the web, and I did see that that is a recommended material. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for presenting. I like the plan, especially off of Wolf Road, just having a nice refresh look there. But my concern was around, you said that the volleyball court was lightly used, if ever, or whatever. I was just curious, the safety of balls going over into the dog park. Had you considered putting up netting on that side to protect against balls? I mean, volleyballs, I'm not very good. I would probably hit it over the line and potentially hit a dog or a kid or something like that. Was that a thought of protecting against the court?
It wasn't. I think we have about 20. Okay. Yeah, I think we have roughly about 15 or 20 feet in between the volleyball court and the dog park. So we honestly didn't think of that.
Okay.
But, the 2 volleyball courts right now are so close together.
Yeah.
We tried to space it out as far as we could and keep the elevation in it, because on the other side, it does dip off pretty far, and we wanted to try to get around to some drainage issues as well.
Okay, yeah, that was, if it becomes a problem, obviously, management will figure something out, just like, I don't know how liability works in general with dog parks with condo. Is there association here?
No, it's
Apartments, okay. So probably just another safety thing if 2 dogs get in it or something, or if balls are flying around. But that was my only concern. I like the idea otherwise, so I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. My only question was about the mulch too, but you've answered that. It's good to see some improvements on the property.
I'll probably be back here pretty often.
Yeah, between this and some of the other things done tonight, it's very nice. Any other questions from the commission? Nope. We have no conditions on this, correct?
Correct.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
You were second, right? Yeah, okay. Commissioner Blanova?
Yes?
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
6 yeses.
All right, I see you're still standing right there for the next one. Docket PC 20-11, again, Foxboro Apartments, 470 Foxboro Drive, minor site plan appearance approval for construction of a 6-foot solid vinyl fence along north property boundary. Ms. Nyes, anything?
Just that the current fence is, you can see from the picture, is in pretty bad shape. It's about, what do we see, around 700 linear feet of existing wood fence. It's going to be replaced with a vinyl fence, 6 feet tall, and here is the location. It jogs along the north property line. And here's a picture. It's my understanding it's a tan color?
Yeah, it's a tannish ivory color.
Yeah,
yes.
tannish ivory. And it will have these caps on it. So I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, it's pretty straightforward. The fence is in really rough shape. Half of it's fallen down. There's a single-family home right on the north side of that, and I think they've been slowly taking pieces down, and it's just in very rough shape, so we feel like it's very important to update that and fresh appearance.
Anything else? If not, I'll go to the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Creech this time.
Again, nice to see the improvements going in over there. It's well past due. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Yednick.
Yeah, one quick question, and it just dawned on me tonight. Like I said, I went out to the property and I looked at the fence. Yeah, it's in really bad shape. I appreciate you changing it out. But I thought I saw a sign in front of one of the parking spots facing your property that said something along the lines of, don't pull in too close to the fence belongs to another.
It was for snow removal, that sign.
What's that?
It was for snow removal. I saw that sign
Yeah,
as
the
well.
snow removal, that don't push it up, it's not our fence kind of a thing. So is that your fence? Are you even taking on a responsibility you don't need to?
It's right on the property line of our property and the single family. We originally approached the single family to split the cost, but they didn't really agree to it, disagree, so we were taking on the responsibility of doing it and making sure it's on our property. But yes, the sign, I think the previous owner was having a lot of issues of the snow companies pushing snow against there and actually causing further damage. So that's why they put those signs up.
All right, so it really is kind of your fence, your property, or a split on the borderline or whatever?
I think maybe originally it might have been split. It's on our, if you look at a plat survey, it is on our property, but
Okay.
I don't know if the costs were split early on in the development or if who paid for it originally, but yeah, it is on our property and we would make sure it is on.
And I'm sure after you spend money, now your new snow removal company is going to be more careful, instructed to be more careful. All right, yeah, that's all I had. It just dawned on me. I remember seeing that sign and I was kind of wondering about that. That's all, Mr. Chairman, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Blanova.
I don't have any questions, as long as it's not white color. I'm good with the vinyl. Thank you.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The red line that you have drawn on the map that shows where you're going to replace the fence, it stops halfway down on the back there. Are you stopping there with the new fence?
Correct, yes.
And then it'll be the old picket fence from there?
Currently, where it stops, there is no existing fence. At that point on the property, on the other side of the line is more of just an open grass field area and a wooded area. So there's no residences or anything behind there. So we didn't feel like it needed to go the rest of the way because just what's on the other side of it.
So all the picket fence that's there now is going to be replaced?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Chairman. And my question was also about the length of the fence, but more so on Allen Court in the picture, it shows it just kind of ends and that trailer is sitting there. Do you know if there's any reason they stopped there and you are for sure continuing through all the way? Because that was kind of weird.
I think my maintenance supervisor that's on site's been there for a number of years, and what he told me is there used to be a fence there.
Okay.
And sometime over the years, that one fell down. Okay. So they never replaced it. So yes, there's a red fence and then a missing section and then a different color fence.
Yeah, I saw that.
Our plan is to take all existing fence down and fill in the missing gaps and have one continuous looking
Okay.
fence.
Yeah, I went there as well, and couldn't quite figure out what was going on, if maybe that was your property where the trailer is, but it's not, so that's good to know. The beige color, is it matching any existing fence or the brick, or was the beige just a choice randomly, or?
Well, this is the only fence on the property. If you look at the property, there's a lot of brown tone.
There is,
a lot
yep.
of that. So with this particular fence, there's three colors. There's white, there's the off tannish color, and then there's a really, really light ivory.
Okay.
So we didn't do white. I know you had a question. We didn't do white just due to getting dirty all the time and looking bad. And then we felt like the tan really tied together with the brick color and kind of the direction we're trying to take the property. Like I said, I'll be here probably in the next meeting talking about some paint colors and stuff as well.
Okay.
So we have a kind of a holistic approach.
So there's a plan.
To tie together.
Okay, great. Yeah, I saw that it kind of matched the building a little bit, but figured you maybe have more plans to freshen up. So I really appreciate all the plans to make it look nicer. So that's it for this. Thank you.
All right. I had a question about where the fence ended, but that's been answered. And just to clarify, existing fence is on your property,
Yes,
and you're taking all that down?
yes.
Okay. That's all I had then. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more thought, if you don't mind. You said you're going to be back a bunch. I didn't look real close, but it looked like some of the balconies could use some work. There was some of the balcony railings looked like in kind of rough shape. Is that on the long-term plan? This is more of an enforcement issue than anything to do with tonight, but
Yeah,
I'm glad
so,
that you guys are cleaning things up, but I know the inspector, the condo building we had, when the inspector was out on another project, said, oh, you need to fix this too, and we had to
Yeah.
fight into that.
The previous ownership recently stained the balconies about 18 months ago. So the staining of the balconies is, I think, in year 2 of our plan. So not this year, later part of next year.
I actually looked like some of the railings were,
Some of the, and then,
busted up.
so we are getting ready to start doing, on the next project, I'm talking with Marcy, is we're actually getting ready to do exterior painting, which is what we'll get approval on next. That will be exterior painting of all the Juliet balconies, doing repairs on the balconies, the legit balconies. And then we've also got our contractor doing all kinds of metal replacement at the
all right,
property
this was
as well.
just concern from a safety perspective. Sorry to go off topic, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Any other questions? Nope. Well, then do I hear a motion? There are no conditions, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Yednak and Creech?
All right, Commissioner Yadnik,
Yes.
Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova,
Yes?
Commissioner Sprague,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes, and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's 6 yeses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, docket 2020-17A. Text amendments to modify the list of prohibited uses and definitions to allow for crematories. Ms. Nice.
Okay, so I will give a brief introduction for this docket, 2020-17A, and also 2020-17B, as they are tied together. The Worsham College of Mortuary Science would like to put in a crematory as part of their teaching curriculum. So in order to do that, they need to come for this text amendment, and it's 2 sections that would need to be amended. One is to strike out crematories from the actual prohibited uses list, and the second text amendment is to modify the definition of a college to expand on a laboratory to include crematories for educational and instructional purposes. And so if this text amendment goes through, then Part B of 2020-17A would be an amendment to their special use to allow a crematory. So you can let the petitioner take it from
Thank you.
here.
Well, Mr. Secretary,
All right,
do your part.
I shall. I apologize ahead of time if I don't say this name correctly. I'm going to give it my best shot. Docket number 2020-17, Laylee McMurrow. Lily McMurrow, on behalf of Worsham College of Mortuary Science, located at 495 Northgate Parkway, property owner is seeking text amendments to Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-10 Use Regulations and associated sections, and Appendix A Use Table in order to modify the list of prohibited uses and permitted uses to allow for crematoriums. A text amendment is an amendment to the map and/or text of the zoning ordinance which affects the whole village. In order to be considered for a text amendment, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that the request meets the standards of the village code, including, but not limited to, how the proposed text amendment is compatible with Title 19 of the Comprehensive Plan. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request meets the standards for a text amendment as established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board.
Thank you. Ms. Petitioner, obviously you are here.
Hello, and thank you.
First, I have to
Yes.
swear you in. It's a public hearing.
Okay,
Please raise your right hand. Is the testimony you're giving tonight the truth?
yes.
Okay. Please state your name and business address.
Lily McMurrow, 495 Northgate Parkway, Wheeling.
All right. And tell us why you want this text amendment.
Thank you. I appreciate you having this time for us to be here. Worsham College of Mortuary Science is one of the oldest mortuary colleges in the entire country. We've been in continuous operation since 1911. And one of our kind of foundation and pieces that we really pride ourselves on is a practical education experience. Right now, more than ever, cremation is on the rise, and we see that right now, we're at over 50% cremation rate nationally. We are on track to go to about an 80% cremation rate in the next 20 years. We are also the 4th largest mortuary college in the entire country, and that is with an on-campus only program. We've now expanded and actually have an online program as well. So we really do educate. Over 10% of all the funeral directors in the entire country come through Wheeling at some point in time. What is really important, and I think to highlight, is that at this time, the cremation education that the students get is completely book-oriented. They never see a crematory, they never operate a crematory, but they are going out, and they are now going out to be crematory operators. And we are saying that is kind of the level of education that we are providing. At this time, in the state of Illinois, there is not a single mortuary college, and there are 4 of us, that even has this as an opportunity for a student to utilize to be able to go out there. I will also point out that cremation is actually one of the areas in which the most ability for litigation actually arises, because there are so many different points at which things could go wrong. So why not allow for a student to be able to actually have practical application experience with an actual crematory? This would be something that is one of the things that would be able to be done on site, and not something that is happening every day or anything like that. This would just be an experience in which a student can actually say, I've operated a crematory. And we feel that's really a foundation piece for anybody going into the mortuary field, especially in this day and age, especially when this is the method of disposition that most families are selecting. And I'm happy to answer any questions, of course.
All right. This is a public hearing. I don't believe we have anybody that signed up to talk about it. So, we can go right to the commission. Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I don't have any questions on that one.
Okay. Commissioner Sprague?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, I think, might be more for Attorney Maluzzi.
Yes.
I was just wondering if it wouldn't be better for the village if we left crematories in the prohibited use, but added an exception for education and training in colleges only, versus removing it completely from being prohibited.
Because it's listed as an explicit prohibited use, we need to remove that in order to allow it as an exception. By adding it into the exception in that college, that is the only place where it would be allowed. Because otherwise, our code is written so that if it's not explicitly allowed, it's deemed prohibited. So this is how we allow it. And because it's not, we're only allowing crematory use in this instance as part of a lab, like an active lab, like similar to when you're in college and you have a chem lab and you're doing work in, with chemicals and those kind of aspects. So it's not allowing in any way crematories as a commercial business.
Right, it's not being added to the use table.
So by removing it from the prohibited uses, that still won't open a door for
No.
other ways to have one.
Correct. It will
Okay.
not open the door because it's not added as a use table, so therefore it's still prohibited by the code.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Commissioner Kalis?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for coming. I learned a lot. This is not an area of life that I've got family members that have been cremated, so I appreciate it much more now, knowing a little bit about it. I didn't know what a retort was, so I had to look that up. So thank you for doing what you do. It's a it's a need in society, so reading the code, I learned more that sauerkraut manufacturing is also prohibited. That was sad to me.
That would come my too.
I need to
Not
talk
that
about.
that's related.
Yeah, we'll have a talk about that one after this. But yeah, I was just curious, not necessarily for you, but for staff or council, but we were talking about taking crematory out of the text amendment, which I understand, and we're defining college or educational purposes, but where in our code are those tied together? Because, well, where does it say that you can do it now that we're taking it out and saying that you can't? Or is it just implicitly like understood that you can since it's not on the prohibited list?
So
Right.
it's not as a prohibited list, given how they are specifically planning to use a crematorium as a lab function, it falls within the scope of the definition of college. And we added in there stating that this term includes any classroom, laboratory, and then we explicitly state including crematoriums for educational
Oh, got it.
and
I see that.
instructional purposes, sporting facility and office associated with such institution.
Got it.
So it's making it clear that for a college that focuses in mortuary science, a crematorium lab is
Acceptable.
acceptable within the uses of a college.
I see it right in front of my face right now, but somehow I missed that bold
okay.
underlined sentence that you added, so thank you. I also was curious, I just want to clarify, and is it a condition on the other one? The two, so once I learned what a retort was, there's some verbiage in here about 2 retorts, but the condition was 1, so was there a reason that you needed 2 that you were looking for?
The only reason why we were thinking about doing 2 is that there are 2 major manufacturers, and being able to kind of show the differences between the 2, like, just even as being able to see them. To be
Gotcha.
able to, like, utilize them and kind of see the differences between the 2 machines. And those are pretty much the 2 that are main throughout, like, the entire country that most people would be operating.
Okay, but that's not necessary, it would just kind of be a nice thing?
Precisely.
Sort of thing, okay. And you said this is all book study so far, you don't go off-site to crematory for the students, no?
No,
Okay.
so actually all crematory operator arranger training is completely done and can actually be done all virtually as well. So being able to have something where you can actually even physically see, you know, the retort and see what we're talking about when we're talking about parts, pieces, and how things work together. I mean, even just that, the visual of that and being able to like touch, feel, see, I think just speaks volumes to the practical application and experience of those people that are going out into the field to then use this equipment and this machinery on a daily basis.
Sure. And you said it's one of the oldest, or not, if not the oldest college for mortuary science, but
Yes.
how long have you been in Wheeling?
I believe since 1992, if I'm not
92,
mistaken.
so a long time. And is there a reason that you're asking just now? Is it because of the uptick, because of how the world's working, or?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, in all honesty, you know, it's something that we have thought about in the past before. But for us, you know, we're relatively new owners as well. And for
Okay.
us, kind of looking at it, what do we see as kind of the next kind of generation of needs for funeral directors? And we did kind of a needs analysis. And what were we seeing from and hearing from funeral directors as well? Like what training would be really, you know, beneficial for the next generation of employees coming out of the college as well?
Sure.
And that type of training was not only valuable, I mean, it's necessary.
Sure. Okay. That's it for me. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yednick.
Yes, thank you. I also had a question about the 2 versus 1 retorts. So right now, then, the first question, I guess, are we asking a question about both Part A and Part B? We're combining them?
Just A right now,
Just stay right now.
just the text amendment right now,
Okay.
So I broke the rules.
All right,
right?
Yeah.
all right, we're going to come back to then Part B. So I guess my question would apply more to Part B because it was a combination. And most of my other questions are about Part B. So as far as the text amendment, I have no questions.
All right, Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.
All right, that leaves me. So right now, the students aren't going somewhere else to learn this?
They are not.
I thought I saw something referenced about Cook County.
Oh, so the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office is actually where they do their embalming laboratories. So part of our experience that the students do, not only are they kind of coming on site to do just kind of basic bookwork, learning all of the, art, sciences, things like that. Their practical application and their embalmings are all done at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office.
Okay. And I guess the elephant in the room is, you're actually going to dispose of bodies in this training?
So yes, would we actually run a cremation and then have the cremated remains afterwards? Yes, that would happen, but they would then be disposed of properly and then taken off-site and then buried and/or given to families. Because all of these cases would be donated through the Anatomical Gift Association or some type of body donation program.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yes.
Where does the subject matter come from?
I figured that would usually be the next question.
Yeah. All right, any other questions from the commission on the text amendment?
What? Oh, okay. We're coming back to B, right?
Yes.
Yes.
No?
You guys are
Okay.
asking questions that are both, but okay.
Yes, I broke the rules.
Anything else from village staff?
No.
And there's no conditions on the text amendment, so I would like to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Kalis?
Creech?
Creech.
I heard Creech. Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes?
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Yadnick?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
6 yeses.
And then I need a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Kalis and Creech?
Oh, we need to go all through. Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Yadnick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. All right. Ready to move on to the next one, 2020-17B, Worsham College, 495 Northgate Parkway, amendment to existing special use. We have the same petitioner here. Please explain.
So in this particular one, for Part B, what would you like me to discuss a little bit more about? Just the,
I'm not sure what details we need on it.
because I will happily.
Yeah,
Is
I
this
guess
one
it's
about
just a-
building out the actual space in their
Well,
garage?
it's a little, I
sort of
can
thing?
speak to that too, certainly. So right now, we actually have on-site, the way that the building is, it almost looks like a U shape from the front end. The entire back end is actually about 20,000 square foot vacant garage that we're using right now for just essentially parking cars for our faculty, which is about 3 of us. So we have that entire space that we've been able to kind of look at, and you can see the garage space right there. That's exactly where we would be planning to build the laboratory, is in there. So there would be no actual build out of the building itself. So we're not actually kind of making any external changes. It would all be done internally within the space that is right there.
Which end of the garage are we talking about?
So it would be, I mean, if I'm looking at it like this,
It's east.
the east, northeast,
Okay.
yes.
About how many square feet are you talking about converting over?
What we were going to do is to keep it so that we could have parking for about 2 to 3 cars on the west end, and then the rest of the space would be built out.
Oh, okay.
And that would really be more for, like, if you think about it like this, to add like amphitheater seating, things like that. So it's kind of building it out so that it's actually able to be utilized for the students, so that they're coming in and they can actually see and sit in that space. We'll also be putting in like audio visual, that type of stuff too. So it would be built out in that way. Not so much space that's all equipment, it's just going to be space for seating, for the visuals and things like that as well.
Thank you. Anything else from staff on this one, Marcy?
No, just that we have suggested or recommended 2 conditions for the or for the amendment to the special use. The first one being the crematorium shall be limited to 1 retort, and the second condition, the crematorium shall only be used for educational purposes.
Thank you. To go right to the commission, start with Commissioner Creech this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're only approving one retort?
Pardon?
Are we only approving one retort now?
That's what staff has recommended. We limit it to one. The thought was for the two conditions that we were just trying to limit the scope in general. But that, it can be removed.
Well, I'm surprised because, for the whole purpose where they're here is for, training purposes for their students. And if they're operating two different machines, I would think that they should be trained on both machines. I know that there's continuing education in a lot of fields. I would think that there's continuing education in their field as well. I think for us to limit them to one retort is, I don't think it's a good idea. I think they should be able to have both of them. They certainly have enough room in their facility for two of them, and I really don't see this being a problem.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think staff knew there were two different manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
We thought it was just two of the same.
It would be two different manufacturers,
Okay.
really, so they could kind of see the two different models, how they operate differently, because they do have different technology and that type of stuff.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Was that it, Commissioner Creech?
Well, maybe we can
Yeah, we can do a poll
change,
on that.
take a poll on that or a vote
Yes.
on that, because I really feel that, for best practices, that they should be trained on the two separate machines.
Okay, we will take a poll on that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Yednek?
Yes, thank you. I also had questions about the 2 versus 1 retort because the zoning language change mentioned 2, the special use is only 1. I think if you're doing a poll, I don't see the need to limit. I mean, if they're willing to invest the money in 2 different pieces of equipment and train on 2 different pieces of equipment, I don't think that it's going to be, I don't think we should restrict them. So, and if they have the space and, the fire department's reviewed and everything. So I had that question. The other thing then, I was a little confused, but it sounded like you answered when it said it was just going to be like practical training, but then you were still doing most of your training down at the morgue. But now, in fact, you're saying that you will have bodies delivered, you will do actual cremations, and so then they're going to be trained from, cradle to grave as far as gathering up the ashes and everything.
Precisely.
So the question I had then is, I went out and looked at the property. You got one really big garage door, which is like on the north end of the property, and then
Yes.
there's a smaller door on the. So you're going to separate the garage between those, so the staff parking's now going to be through the smaller garage door. So is that big door going to remain in place, and that'll be your delivery door, or?
So like the size of like the things coming in could actually be utilized either door, quite frankly. I mean, I don't think that that's going to be.
You're not going to separate the staff parking from the
Oh,
laboratory?
no, we will. I'm sorry. Yes, we are going to like put up an actual wall that would be staff parking on one side with the larger door, and then the rest of the space would actually be a lab. So there would be now like a wall between the two. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, so then that brought me to, what are your plans for the logistics of the body delivery? I mean, picking up the ashes, no big deal. I picked up my dad, it's a, shoebox
Right.
size. But, body delivery itself, are you going to actually pull the vehicle into that large door?
Yes.
Have a delivery area?
Correct,
So
yes.
it's going to be safe and respectful and everything?
Absolutely, it'll be safe, and not only respectful, it'll actually also be completely housed within inside the building. So it would not be something that's happening like outside or anything like that. It would actually be happening inside. And that whole process, kind of the way that everything is done, even when you are receiving remains like that, they are completely covered and housed and kind of, and done in such a way that whenever you're working with any of these organizations or anything like that, the number one foundation piece is kind of respect for the deceased, especially when, I mean, not especially, but all times. I mean, all the cases that we handled out of the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office are all the indigent. So they are the people that nobody can afford to do anything with them. And those are the ones that we actually work with. And it's going to be very similar with the cases that we get as far as this goes as well. So one of the things that we teach every single student is this respect for the deceased. So from the moment they come into our care, from the time that they leave, that is exactly how we treat them. So that it is nothing that would be exposure or anything like that. I mean, it is about confidentiality. It is about kind of all of that and reverence for the deceased.
All right, yeah, I just was thinking, you don't want the neighborhood kids find out, hey, it's body
No.
delivery day, let's go watch what's going on.
Absolutely not. And I mean, and that's such a good point. And I mean, and to speak to that too, it's just something that we care about very deeply is that is one of the basic tenets of everything that we teach, that it is respect for the deceased, because that is what our job is, and caring for those families.
And then the other question, then, some of the language talked about it not only being the crematory facility, but it's going to be a practical classroom. So I was curious then, is this going to be an expansion of just the crematory? Are you now going to be doing other type of lab work there, such as embalming and things? Or, I mean, because that's not really mentioned in here, and I don't know if we need to cover that if you're planning on doing extra work like that.
So the idea would be something like a deceased would come in, and then what the students would be able to do is be able to actually embalm and then do the cremation right after. So the idea would be that they could do like a practical application on site, then they could also do the cremation as well. At the same time, if they don't need that type of training for that purpose or anything like that, we could do just the cremation. So it allows for a little bit of flexibility, especially as we have more students kind of coming from online, being able to provide that flexibility for them as well.
All right, so then that brings my question to staff and legal then. Do we need to change the language to explain that this is more than just a crematorium? This is really almost like a full-service funeral parlor application
As far as
plus
like,
the crematorium.
as far as like for the practical application and doing like an embalming and
Because you're
things
not
like that.
currently doing any body handling at all on site. So now it's a
Here I
whole, we're really expanding beyond just the crematorium. So I wondered, do we need to address that?
I think that could be a condition added, yes, that could be allowed. I think it falls within the definition of college still as a laboratory, but.
I'm not
given that this
objecting,
is-
I just did, I wasn't sure when I was reading and it talked about practical classroom, so I assumed that meant they're doing beyond just the cremation.
I think that, yeah, we should, if that's the case, we should include that in the text as a condition so that it's explicit that their use includes that if the commission is in favor of that.
Okay. The other question, I guess, for staff and legal, do we need to see the classroom layout in order to do the approval, or is that
No,
irrelevant?
not for the special use, and the site, we don't need a site plan review on this because no exterior changes are being made.
What about and would this be all, because now if they're going to be doing embalming, now you've got hazardous waste removal, you've got all those things that have to be built in. Is that part of the fire department and code enforcement
Yes.
that they're going to be responsible for making sure
Yeah, when they
all
come in
that?
for a permit, the fire department will review that as well as zoning and,
And there are state
Health.
licenses associated
Yeah.
with this, so they have, so any crematory aspect has to get a state license as well, and I believe embalming as well, so there'll also be
Correct.
state agencies doing inspections and making sure they conform with all the requirements.
Okay, so we don't need to worry about that from the
Correct.
plant. Okay, then I was wondering about utility or gas delivery or any of that. That all has to be dealt
It all
with
will
in
go through,
permitting
yeah.
and safety and all the rest of that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, aside from the 1-2 retort issue, I guess I have no other questions then. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no further questions, except for the poll. I will
Okay.
wait for the poll.
Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you, Ms.
Thank you.
Nick Morrow. You mentioned that it would be used intermittently. What exactly do you mean by intermittently?
Pretty much like what we do right now is we do the crematory operator training twice a year. So it would be probably around that same number, but if we have like an additional online class, it might be 3 times a year, it might be 4 times a year. So it's not so I didn't want to put a specific number and say this is what we're going to do, but I also didn't want it to come across that we have any intention that this is going to be something that is like a daily run or anything like that.
Okay, good. I have one more question. In your cover letter, you make a statement that says Worsham College can also, in times of crisis, assist the town, county, and state with emergency support.
Absolutely.
Does that mean we could have a refrigerated trailer truck show up?
If you need it. I want to be clear about that. So this is something, going through COVID and being kind of on site at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office and seeing what they went through. And we were actually on site, and I was one of the teams deployed to their refrigerated center that they actually put in place for just kind of the influx of refrigerated trucks and things that they needed to deal with. What it brought to my attention is that having that ability and flexibility, if the town ever needs us, we can be there for you. It's not something that we intend to, put without US asking us for, but it is just something that I've seen. And then, we have a lot of colleagues throughout the country. I have several of our counterparts that are in Detroit, New York, and seeing what they went through and kind of the influx of just essentially deceased that they had to deal with. Having that space and having somewhere that that you can utilize, I think in this time, it's certainly not something, pleasant to speak about, but it's real. And knowing that that space is available and something that we are more than happy to share and be here for the town and the village if you need us.
Yeah, I had a little concern with, could the state mandate or order or force you to be used if they needed it?
Very unlikely, mostly because of the way that the laws for disposition are kind of written out. It's very unlikely. It would be more of like an emergency planning done by the village or some type of like ordinance like that, not something where it'd be at a state level. And we're also so small as far as like a state level would go that I don't think we'd be quite on their radar. They would definitely be focused more on like the city of Chicago. What the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office did is essentially bought an entire warehouse, like a refrigerated warehouse. We are not at that level or anything like that. So I mean, I can't predict the future, but we're not on that level.
Now, if you were asked to be used in that kind of a circumstance, would they have to come before the village first for that kind of use?
Yes, so.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah, and so in talking with Director Clicker, it would kind of be similar to an emergency situation where we allowed outdoor restaurants, in a time of, the COVID situation where if that was something that was needed, it could be done expeditiously, that we would allow, if that's what, was determined by the village to be needed. But that wouldn't be something that was allowed under this special use.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm a firm believer of hands-on training, and I think it's a great idea. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Now, although your information stated there's no exterior changes, I assume there has to be exhaust stacks or something with these? Or are they completely self-contained?
They really are self-contained. If I'm not mistaken, would there be? There is an external stack. There is an external stack, yes.
Now, that's nothing big though? It's
No,
just-
I mean, it's like, yeah.
Is that an issue?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, what was the answer?
Kind of like a chimney. Like a chimney.
Oh, but he made an answer, I couldn't hear his
Yeah.
answer.
Why don't you come on up?
Each manufacturer has set requirements on how they structure that exhaust, but yeah, it's typically a tubular shape, and it does extend upward from the unit itself.
Okay.
And you'd have one per retort,
Correct.
and those need to be exhausted out. And by that, I mean, the building currently doesn't have an exhaust that you can tap into. You'd have to alter the building to exhaust that.
Correct.
Okay, so that's,
We alter the roof.
gotcha. Okay, so that is,
Is that anything we need to be concerned about?
I don't think so.
I think it'd fall under probably an administrative site
And-
plan change because it's so,
It'd come up with permitting and everything? Okay.
yeah. I mean, if it ends up being something larger that would need to be a minor site plan, we'll bring it to you.
Very good. How different are these two machines?
Well, it's technology-based difference, and then also just kind of like systematically how you utilize them are both different. So how you would kind of load them, unload them, how you would actually like physically do all of the, a lot of it is computer-based too, so like even just kind of utilizing the technology and knowing how to like program it and do the different things like that.
Okay. And roughly how big is each retort?
Spatially, that is not my greatest.
And then Chairman Johnson, can we get sworn in?
Sorry.
Sworn in.
This isn't the public.
Oh,
hearing.
this isn't a public.
No. The text amendment.
Oh,
was.
okay,
This is
okay.
not. But we could get your name and address anyways.
Sure, sorry.
This is my lovely wife. I'm Brian McMurrow.
Thank you.
So the dimension-wise, these are roughly about 7 to 8 inches width, and they go depth-wise about 12 feet.
7 to 8 feet width.
7 to 8.
He said inches.
I know, I was
Inches
like,
in-
wait a minute.
First you'd
Real
have to,
skinny people.
first you'd have to press them.
But yeah, given the size, we would still be able to pull in the vehicle to do that transfer and still have access to, transport the distance around.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's take a poll on whether we should give them the flexibility to have 2 retorts in order to have both machines available.
So are we saying specifically 2? What if a third manufacturer comes on the market, and do we want to limit them to 2, or just say
We
no?
were going to limit it to 1, so I think.
Okay.
limiting-
Yeah, but
I just want to clarify, I mean,
The one limit was staff suggestion. I would like to hear what the petitioner would like before we do the poll. Because if
Okay.
they say that they would like the option to maybe go to 3 at some point and have the room, why limit it now and make them come back later?
Your opinion?
I appreciate that, and I will say, I think maybe having that flexibility is a great idea, mostly because as we see the number of cremations rising year after year, and like I said, in about 20 years, we're probably about 80% cremation. I do imagine that not only will new manufacturers kind of come on the scene, there might be new technology and things like that. So having the flexibility certainly is appreciated. I will also say that these machines are very expensive, so it's not something that we would just kind of decide at any point in time, we're going to go to 4, we're going to go to 8. So, I mean, it would be, it's a massive financial investment in order to even get 1 or 2 of these. So, but I do appreciate that flexibility because, like I said, I do think, especially as we see technology and innovations that are happening, being able to have that flexibility would be nice.
Well, the other question I would have around that question, though, is if you put in 2, if you wanted to go to 3, would you have to be coming back to do building changes, so you'd have to come back anyway?
Probably.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So realistically, is the space only flexible for 2 right now?
I mean, I guess if we really wanted to, I mean, we can imagine a space that we could probably do 4. But really, in our minds right now, it is the 2, with the 2 major manufacturers and kind of what our goal is in order to really provide that for the students. Like I said, it is nice to have that flexibility to be able to do that, but I believe we'd have to come before you anyway if we were going to add additional ones as well, so.
Okay, so, back to the poll. Yes or no, do we allow them to have the 2? Commissioner Creech?
Yes, allow them to have the 2.
Commissioner Yednak?
I would say no limit, but if it were going to increase to 2, I would say at least increase to 2.
Well, they would have to come back to us anyways, if they went to 3, so.
Well, not necessarily. She said she thought they could fit the space, but the financial thing would be their choice.
Yeah, so
So.
we'll just stick between the 1 and 2.
All right, if it's
Commissioner
between 1 and 2, 2.
Commissioner Blanova?
2.
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis?
yes.
And I would agree too. So we will take that condition out.
Well, do you
We would
want the,
amend that condition to be 2 retorts.
Yeah.
got it.
And can we take a poll then on adding the embalmment as part of the condition as well? Allowing whether or not the commission is in favor of also allowing the embalmment activities?
You,
I'm not saying it correctly, I'm aware.
you want to craft that into something we can vote on?
Take the poll and,
The embalming will be for educational purposes.
right,
Just like
the
the other
language.
one.
This-
Embalming
Well,
will
does the
be,
petitioner have a way to phrase that? Like, they're going to be able to do full service funeral preparation, or how would you phrase that if we're going to expand your scope?
That the college would be able to allow for practical applications such as embalming for the students for practical training purposes.
Okay.
that sounds pretty good.
Anything else in the process that we should know about?
Yeah.
Because clearly we don't know anything about this
No,
process.
and honestly, most people don't, it's okay.
Well,
I mean-
realistically, though, I went to Southern Illinois University, and they had a mortuary school down there.
Yes.
One of my roommate's buddies was a mortuary science, and they did that reconstructive
We do that as well.
sculpting.
Yeah, we do that as well, we do that
But they
right
did
here.
it with fake heads, but are you going to do that with real bodies on site?
Actually, that's a great question. So we, right now, on-site, do exactly that. We have it's kind of like a rite of passage almost in mortuary college, where you have kind of like your plastic skull, and then you do a facial reconstruction. Right now, what we do have is we actually have invested in some, not real, but like some different skulls that have been actually like crushed in different ways that represent like maybe a gunshot wound, something you might have with a high-impact traffic type accident or something like that. And we have our students actually work to put those skulls back together by kind of understanding the anatomy of the skull. Because one of our basic philosophies also is being able to give a family the ability to see their loved one, especially if they've been taken away in kind of a violent or a traumatic way. A lot of times, being able to do that is a skill. I mean, it is definitely a skill.
So would the plan be to do that on actual bodies, or no?
It could be, certainly, but that would be restoration work that would happen with an embalming anyway. So like, you would have to embalm the body first, no matter what, in order to do that type of reconstructive work. But that would be something that would be part of kind of the process that would be done. But there would be no additional things done to the body in order to do that. It would be something that would be kind of part of the process.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it was my understanding from what you were referring to earlier on was that since you are going to have a crematorium and you are doing embalming, and Ms. Maluzzi, I think you said that a funeral license would be required for doing that particular work over there as well, wouldn't they?
Not a funeral license, they wouldn't be a license.
Or maybe that's the wrong word, but I mean, since they're a professional college teaching that science, and they're going to be doing that there, they would be under the same rules and regulations as any other funeral director. Correct?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I am a licensed funeral director and embalmer, so like, I already have that license. And most all of our faculty and staff have that license as well, so.
Okay.
That would be something, I mean, and we keep them all active.
So I understand that you have to have a license to do the work, but the facility also has to be licensed for that work to be done there. And since they're doing that there, isn't that all the same? Maybe
I don't know, I guess I don't know enough about, I know that there is a state like license for crematories for like health and safety aspects, like health and sanitation, that would be different than a funeral home license as a business.
Well,
So,
there's funeral homes that have crematoriums too.
right, and those are.
But I'm just saying, since they're going to do this, isn't that part of what we're doing here tonight? Isn't that part of all the licensings and the legal aspects and all the permitting and everything? They would have to have that.
Well, so as a college, we're talking about their use as a college, their special use to operate as a college, and their special, and because they're not currently doing those activities on site, we're now just making it clear that they would be allowed to perform those activities on site. Because it's something that wasn't part of their proposal when they came to the village originally. So that's why we're adding these uses now to their special use. That's why we're amending their special use. Because they haven't been doing these on that property yet, so far.
Okay, so I guess my point is that since they're doing all this, aren't they actually considered a licensed facility to do all this work? Wouldn't that all be one thing?
The license and the special use are different, though, because a license.
I understand that.
Okay. I guess I'm not understanding
I think the question would be if we just said that they are allowed to operate as a funeral home with crematory services for purposes of
No, yeah.
education only, that would be more expansive and give them, is that what you're kind of saying? That would allow them to do all the things they want to do.
They would have
They
to-
don't currently do bodies now, but you want to do bodies on site. That's the big difference.
We don't want to use the word funeral home because that is a commercial business, and so even then limiting it to
Okay, all right.
educational, I think makes it confusing.
All right, that makes perfect sense to me, but it, so I guess then we would have to add another thing to our list if we're going to allow them to work on bodies there.
Well, that's what I think the embalming covers, like the practical application or practical experience or
We
learning.
could say even like the, the preparation, preservation, and then disposition of the deceased.
There, that could,
So would be all encompassing.
That would be all
Yeah.
encompassing.
Okay, there you go.
there
I
we
should
go.
have asked you first.
Say that again?
Thank you.
Preparation,
Thank you,
preservation,
Ms. Malusi.
and
Disposition.
disposition of the deceased.
Including cremation, do you need to say that?
Well, cremation would be a disposition. It's a method
Yeah.
of disposition.
So you want that as a condition?
Yes.
So I was going to put it that laboratory work includes the preparation, preservation, and disposition of the deceased.
And that would cover everything.
Right, because that's, the laboratory work then is what's tied to the text.
It ties
Yes.
it all to the college.
And then we keep in the educational purposes only.
Right.
Well, I'm not
Right.
changing the text amendment.
Correct.
Right, I'm just doing this.
Right, for the special
Okay.
use, yeah. Well, the educational purposes only is on the special use, right?
The what?
The educational purposes only is a condition of the special use already.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just saying keep that.
But right now, it only says crematorium. So this,
No, the condition says the crematorium shall only be used for educational purposes.
right, but this other stuff that we've just talked about is also for educational, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, yes.
So is that covered?
Exactly.
So can you add
My
that
point.
to what she just said and make that a new condition, get rid of number 2?
Right, so it could state that the uses allowed encompass, what did you say, laboratories?
Sorry, I
What
can't.
what were you putting before that?
It
The
just said-
laboratory work includes the preparation, preservation, and disposition of the deceased as part of the practical training purposes.
Can you say a laboratory of a crematorium, so you're specifying?
It's for, just at the end, and which shall be used only for educational purposes. Or shall be limited to only.
Okay, you still going to take your poll on that item?
Well, let's read it again and I'll get a feel for if we need to.
Should we
do a
read
poll.
both conditions?
I think we've talked about it enough.
See the typos. Okay, So the two conditions we have are the crematorium shall be limited to 2 retorts. The second condition is laboratory work includes the preparation, preservation, and disposition of the deceased as part of the practical training purposes and shall be limited only, or shall be limited to only educational purposes. Something like that.
Is that clear to everybody?
That's a little awkward because you're saying
A little
training and educational. It's, I think
Yeah,
you could have just replaced crematorium and say the laboratory shall only be used for the disposition, what was it, preparation, presentation, and disposition of deceased for educational purposes. The laboratory shall only be used for the preparation, presentation, and disposition of the deceased for educational purposes.
Is there any comments from this end of the commission on what we've been talking about at this end?
Great work. Thanks.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, read it
Again?
and we'll get a motion
If you
going.
dare.
So the second one again, the laboratory shall only be used for the preparation, preservation, and disposition of the deceased for educational purposes.
That's clearer.
Lovely.
All right, with those two conditions, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So there was no second poll?
I'm sorry, what?
There was no second poll,
No,
right?
because
I didn't
we're-
think so. Okay, I was,
We're voting on it with the conditions. So
Okay.
Commissioner Kalis and Commissioner Yednek, I think?
Correct.
I heard Sprague just because I'm next to him, but
I think Yednek was first.
So who was it? Sorry.
Yednek.
Listen, Yednek.
Kalis,
Thank you.
Yednek.
okay. Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Okay,
Commissioner Yednek?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
yes,
6 yeses.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We've learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations on expanding your program, I think.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
And we've got some course credits now, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, moving on to docket number 2020-18, variation to permit a 6-foot tall opaque fence within the front yard setback at 555 Cherrwood Drive. Mr. Secretary,
Okay.
variation and...
Yep, got it.
Do we have to close the last public hearing?
That one was not a public
Not a
hearing.
public.
No, the
We closed
first
it.
part of.
First one
I
was-
don't think, did we close it?
closed
We did
the first
close it.
No, I missed it, sorry.
You didn't miss it. You were here. You said, you agreed. I have it on the record. Hello there. All right, docket number 2020-18, Louis Abuna, property owner, is seeking a variation from Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-10, use regulations and associated sections to permit a 6-foot tall opaque fence within the front yard setback area, which restricts opaque fencing to a maximum height of 4 feet for the property located at 555 Cherrwood Drive in Wheeling, Illinois. And a zoning variation is intended to be a method, is intended to be a method of adjustment to equalize regulations where the zoning code has created an unnecessary hardship. A variation is designed to allow affected property owners the same rights and privileges that others enjoy in the same zoning district. In order to be granted a variation, a petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that their request meets the standards of the village code, including but not limited to how their individual situation is unique or unusual. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for variation meets the standards established in Title 19. The Commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting material submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report these findings to the village board.
Thank you. Ms. Nye, is anything on this?
Just briefly, this is similar to some we've seen recently where the petitioner has two front yards, one on Cherrwood. Cherrwood, and one on Vera. So this time he's looking to put a fence on the east side of his property, and it'll extend into the front yard of Vera, and his backyard is on the east side. So I don't know if you take a look at this drawing here, if this makes sense, but if you want to, it's really all I have.
All right, I need to swear you in.
Sure.
Do you swear the testimony you're giving tonight to be the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address.
Louis Abuna, Aboona, 555 Cherrwood Drive, Wheeling.
Thank you. Okay, explain what it is you're doing here.
It's a simple request. Want to put a fence along our east property line, 6 feet tall, and it's projecting into the front yard. It's going to be opaque, cedar fence. So, I mean, it's going to simple request. It's not going to block any sight lines. This shows where the fence is going to be. This is the shed, and Vera is to your left. So give us some privacy.
All right. I think we can go right to the commission with this one. Commissioner Yednick.
My question is for staff and legal. I went out and took a look at the property. The proposed location of the fence is really between two houses, so it doesn't front any of the streets. I was wondering why we need a variation.
Right here, this is in the front.
What? That little section that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
25
So if he
feet.
cut that fence off, what, 6 feet from the end? It would,
They'd have to cut it off 25 feet.
25 feet.
25 feet.
Yeah, 25-foot setback.
25 foot.
The house
setback.
faces Vera.
Okay.
That's
then
that's
it's-
considered the front
Yeah,
yard.
so
You
this
might have
is,
saw me looking at, somebody was pulling out of your garage when I pulled up to take a look. So, all right, so it's that extension all the way to the
Yeah.
street. Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Okay. Lost my spot here. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you, Chairman. Can only hope your neighbors didn't think that I was creepy, driving around slowly and looking at random yards, but I see the need for it as well. I have no problem with it. My question would be, what was my question? It was, the 4-foot limit is for a fence along a street. Is that the difference?
it is within the 25-foot setback.
Oh, right.
So really along, in between the two houses, he can put the fence without a variance. It's just this first 25 feet.
That's right, okay.
It would have to be 4 feet.
Okay, gotcha. And is any, do you have to ask the neighbors or anything? And does it matter what the neighbors think? Is this, because this is a public hearing?
This was a public
There was a
hearing.
sign up and we
Yep.
told the neighbors, okay.
And there were no comments, no calls.
Okay, that's mostly what I want to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions.
Commissioner Blanova.
No questions, thank you.
All right. So we're just talking about one straight length of fence. Was there once fence there? It looks like on the plat that you provided, there had been.
There was a decorative fence, like 4 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot
Looks like it's
tall.
been gone for a while,
It
though.
has been gone for a while, yeah. There was a lot of vegetation from our neighbor and, and that was removed and that kind of created the issue of the privacy.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
So moved.
Second.
Sprague and Creech?
All right, Commissioner Sprague,
Yes.
Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova,
Yes?
Commissioner Kales votes yes, Commissioner Yadnick,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson,
Yes.
6 yeses.
Thank you. This is,
When is this coming to Village Board?
This will be the September 21st meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
and
Need
then
to
I need a
close.
motion to close. This was a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. And finally, we have docket 2020-19A and B.
Did your ice cream
Sign.
melt already?
Sign variation to increase wall sign area at Arctic Spoon at 371 West Dundee Road. Again, this is a public hearing, correct? So, need to swear you in. Do you swear the testimony you're giving tonight is the truth?
I do.
All right. State your name, business address.
Vince Tran, 371 West Dundee Road.
Does the secretary need to read the?
Oh,
I sure do.
he does.
That's right. I was totally going to do that. Thank you. Docket number 2020-19A and B. Mark Your Space Sign Company applicant is seeking the following variations for Arctic Spoon in the Wheeling Town Center Development, 371 West Dundee Road, Wheeling, Illinois. 2020-19A, a variation from Title 21 Signs of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 21-06, Signs in Commercial and Industrial Districts, Section 21.06.500A3G, sign dimensions to permit an increase in the permitted wall sign area on the east building elevation. Docket 2020-19B, a variation from Title 21 Signs of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 21-6 Signs in Commercial and Industrial Districts, Section 21.06.500A3G, sign dimensions to permit an increase in the permitted wall sign area on the west building elevation. And zoning variation again, right? Or is this?
Yes.
Sign or any variation, okay. A zoning variation is intended to be a method of adjustment to equalize regulations where the zoning code has created an unnecessary hardship. A variation is designed to allow affected property owners the same rights and privileges that others enjoy in the same zoning district. In order to be granted a variation, a petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing that their request meets the standards of the village code, including but not limited to how their individual situation is unique or unusual. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for variation meets the standards established in Title 19. The commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board.
Thank you. Ms. Nyes, anything on this?
Just give a brief overview that the petitioner would like to put up 3 signs. The first sign was approved under the consent agenda, and that's on the north side. That sign met the requirements. So the 2 signs under this docket are the east and the west sign, and they're both the same sign, but different sizes. And we have some pictures here to show that. That's about it.
Okay. All right. Tell us your story.
Basically, that's basically it, looking for some signs on the east and west, because as you can see from the coming down, towards the east side, which is the west side of the, facing CMX. There's, if I'm not zooming into the picture, it's really hard to see anything in that kind of storefront. So we're looking to put a little bit bigger sign, if you will, so that we can actually see. And then this one is the east side, similar situation. When you're coming in towards the metro station, the east side facing the learning center, you can't really see anything towards the back because of the way the strip center is laid out. City Works is really dominating, the visibility. So we're looking for 2 signs on the east and west to be a little bit bigger.
All right. Commissioner Yednick.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with staff, and I agree with the petitioner. It is limited visibility, and I have no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kalis?
Thank you, Chairman. I have, excuse me, no problem. I like the sign. I'm fine with them being bigger due to the unique layout of our town center. One thing I wanted to note, in one of the questions, it says indicate how the granting of the requested variation would not be material detrimental to the property owners. One part of your answer said that this variance is necessary in order for the business to succeed. I would just be careful to not, I don't think that's true. And I don't think you need to say that. You can stand on the merits of the request without embellishing. I would just, for anything in the future, I would hope that this variance is not necessary for you to succeed. I think rolled ice cream is going to succeed just fine. But I am in favor of the signs, and I'm fine with it, so thank you.
I actually didn't put that comment in there. Mark
You
just
what?
spaced it that.
What's that?
Mark just spaced it that, so I just kind of left it.
I don't think it's necessary
agree.
to embellish like that, to make it that dramatic. I think you're going to do great, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sprague?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.
Commissioner Blanova?
No questions, thank you.
All right. My only thought was the one on the west side facing the plaza probably didn't need to be a lot bigger than what you were allowed, right? I mean, you're going to be standing right in front of it.
No, you're right, but just driving by, on the road from the metro station, it's a little hard to see. Hence why we wanted the north sign and the west side. Because, like, if you look at the picture right here, if you don't zoom in, it's really further out.
Right.
So that was my only.
You got terrible line of sight.
Yeah.
I agree. You could make them 5 times bigger and you're
Right.
still not going to see it from Dundee.
Right.
But, okay. Any other questions from the commission? Nope. All right. Then do I hear a motion? Can we vote on both of these together, Mallory? A and B? Or do we need to do
I
them
would do them
separate?
separately.
Okay. So, a motion on 2020-19A first?
So moved?
Second. Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Blanova?
Yes,
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. And on 2020-19B?
So moved.
Second?
All right, Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
yes,
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes, and Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Sorry you had to wait so long for that.
I actually learned a lot from there.
Yeah, you too.
Didn't we all?
We all learned a lot tonight.
Thanks for your patience.
All right, thank you.
So you will also be going to the September 21st Village Board meeting because there's no meeting on the 7th because of Labor
Oh,
Day.
really? It moved to 21st?
Yeah, that's the next board meeting. So they can start fabricating the sign, they
Oh, they
just
can, okay.
can't put it up yet.
Okay, as long as they can start, because that takes like 10 weeks.
Oh, 10 weeks.
When do you plan on opening? Just-
Well, I got 2 more weeks left to do the installation of the equipment,
Okay.
and then maybe 3 more weeks.
But they're going to put the temporary signs up?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we can talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, and I have a check for you.
Oh, you do? Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, that
For all of us? No.
Yeah. This,
All right, have a good evening, guys.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
motion to close
So moved?
both of these at once.
Second.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
yes.
Commissioner Kalis votes yes. Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. All right, next up, we have approval of minutes of the regular meeting of July 22nd, 2020, including findings of fact for docket number 2020-15.
So moved.
Second?
Was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't. I wasn't here. Commissioner Yednick?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes,
Commissioner Sprague?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis abstain. Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes. Other business. Start with Ms. Nyes. Do you have anything for us?
Just a heads up that next meeting, we are bringing before you the text amendments, proposed text amendments for trash enclosures, and also the proposed text amendments for restaurants and financial institutions, amongst our regular agenda items.
Do we have a lot of regular agenda items coming up?
No, there's a couple.
Okay. Commissioner Creech, any other business?
So do we have to await for the agenda to get any of this information?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Yednick.
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Blanova.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Sprague.
Nothing for me, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Commissioner Kalis.
I am not, is it public notice that I'll be here for 2 more meetings. And then I'm moving my family to Tennessee. And I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure serving. It's been 4 years since I was at a block party and I was encouraged to join this commission. And it's been great. I've learned a lot. I love being part of this. I love this community. I love where we've come the last 4 or 5 years. I love where it's going. But we are moving out of state. So unfortunately, I will be leaving you all fine people. But I've had a blast. I'm going to become involved locally where I'm moving in some capacity, and it's largely because of what I've learned here. So I appreciate all the former directors or anyone who's had anything to do with it, trustees, commissioners that have come and gone, and in the future, I'm super excited to be able to come back and see all the progress. I am excited to see the progress just with what's going on up and down Dundee. It's very, very exciting to see our work put into action, and it's great. I'm a big fan of this community, and it's been exciting. So I will be here for another month, and then I will not be, but I will be with you in spirit there. So thank you all for working together with me and teaching me different things. So that's all from me.
You can probably still tune in from Tennessee.
Oh, you know I will.
Did you book our YouTube channel? Bookmark the YouTube.
With my wife, she's going to sit attentively by my side, and we're going to watch it together as a family. Yes.
All right. I really don't have anything. You know, we had quite a few of these side lot fences, and I've talked with Marcy and Director Clicker on this, that maybe in the future we can simplify this for residents, because we have so many situations in town. I've got one.
True.
Our whole neighborhood has them, so hopefully we can simplify this down the road. Mallory, anything from the legal department?
No, nothing.
All right. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Adjourned. Thanks, everybody.